I guess there's an association for that, and they forced Tom Cruise to refute that statement. But unfortunately, it appeared, and he made it on the Barbara Waller show with the whole nation saw it, and the retraction was on the back of a magazine like about that big. So.
The next note really is actually a very compelling story about a parent just describes their son's trek to seek truth or meaning through India. And the question that I guess comes from it, they talked about, the person who wrote this, that they wrote constantly. So I'll pose a question to the panel here. Did you keep, were there a lot of letters or contacts coming from your family? And be interested to know what it was like from the parents' side when you sent it, and what was it like from the cult member side when you received the letters.
When Corey was in Montana, she would call occasionally, but we really didn't have conversations unless the people that she lived with were out of the house. And then some of her old personality would sometimes come back, and she would even tell me that she missed me. But I sent her cards, I sent her family photographs, I sent her letters, I sent her news of what was going on all the time, and she didn't pictures, lots of pictures. She didn't respond, but she told me later that they meant a lot to her, and the contact was really important. It made her feel like she missed us at times.
I just want to add, this is one thing we were told when we went to the support group, and the people we contacted, was to keep the lines of communication open. And it was very difficult. I'd have to force Judy at times because she's better with communication than I am, especially the written word. And I would sometimes have to force her to go ahead and send a letter or call because she got discouraged because things weren't coming back. But she persisted, and it was very helpful.
Obviously, I told my family how much those things meant to me after I left the cult, because when I was in the cult and up in Montana, other people were opening the mail. I never actually really saw the cards or what the cards said. However, they would read to me the notes that my parents wrote and the letters that my parents wrote, of course making very snide remarks as they were reading them, like, you don't actually believe what they're saying, and things like that. So, but it did mean a lot to me, and it did register at some level.
Could you just clarify, so they opened and read your mail?
They opened and read my mail. They meaning people that I was living with in the cult.
Well, I had never actually received mail from my parents. Most of the time that I was in the cult, I was still living at Hofstra, so I wasn't living with the cult until the very last week when I moved into the Sea Org. So I never had a problem with them opening my mail. But it's interesting because while I was working in the org, I was going to school in the morning and then working there at night, my job was director of communications. I was opening other people's mail. Most of the communication with me and my parents generally was over the telephone, and as my father explained, that was somewhat difficult. I got a lot of messages on my answering machine in my dorm room, and I wouldn't have time to call back, and the messages got angrier and angrier, like, where are you? Why haven't you called us back? So they kept leaving me these messages, and I just wasn't calling them back. And then finally, when it got to the point when I was in the Sea Org and they tried calling me, they couldn't even get through. They had to, it was a hassle just to get through. And when they got through, I had a coach sitting next to me telling me what to say. And in my mind, I thought this was a good thing that this coach was here, because I was so afraid I'd say the wrong thing and my parents would go suppressive on me, and I'd have this PTS problem, would never get resolved, and I'd never go to California. I thought this guy was really going to help me out by coaching me, and so I actually thought the guy was helping me. And I think about it now, and I realize how crazy it really is for a kid to need a coach just to talk to his own parents.
Yeah, making the calls was frightening. It was just like, we knew when we called him at Hofstra that we could always get him, because all we had to do is leave the message, we're really worried, we're coming over to see you. And that would get a phone call back right away. And that didn't work this time. Nothing worked. It's frightening. But our letter writing that we talked about on that Friday before Paul came home was the beginning of a process to keep writing him, and even send him baseball tickets, because we were great baseball fans. That even if he wasn't going to use them, even if a Scientologist was going to sit in the seat next to me, at least I'll be able to ask him, hey, have you seen my son?
I just want to say one thing, and it's really a testimony to all of you that are sitting in this audience, because if it weren't for CAN and the work that you do and all of you, I don't think any of us would be up here. And I think in the 4 years that I have worked with this organization, I have met more wonderful people, and the stories that you tell me are, you know, what makes doing all of this worthwhile. And I just want to thank you all for being here, because if it weren't for you, I don't think that any people that are in cults would you know, they wouldn't get out, and there wouldn't be the success at educating people that there is.
Well, I want to thank you all for being a wonderful audience, for the excellent questions, and certainly want to thank the panel for sharing their experience and really educating us a great deal. Thank you, and we're concluded.